How's it going, YouTube? Welcome back to your favorite aviation channel. Today I'll be showing you all my attempt at doing Doha Hamad International Airport in 1/400 scale. This is the first airport update of its kind on YouTube. To my knowledge, nobody has ever done a Doha airport update till now. So I thought, you know what, I have a pretty sizable Qatar Airways fleet, and I also have a pretty decent amount of planes to justify doing a Doha airport, so hence here we are today with this one-off update. Just a quick disclaimer before we start the actual update. This is not the best representation of Hamad International Airport. I'm just going to say that right here and right now. I did my best, but it is a very, very huge and complex airport terminal layout, so I wasn't able to do the entire thing, but I did my best, and that's really all that matters. So just want to make that very clear before we started the video. There is no set time frame for the flights in this airport update, but the vast majority of them that you'll see in this video are actually based off of the 7 a.m. through 9 a.m. time frame, but there are various other flights from other time periods during the day as well. So yeah, pretty packed video. Hope you'll enjoy it. So without any further delay, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first off, here's a brief tour of the setup I have here for Doha Hamad International Airport. I was able to get pretty much the entire terminal set up across these three tables, which is quite nice. Unfortunately, some parts of the terminal were left out. Number one, because of space constraints, and number two, because I actually ran out of materials building some parts of the terminal, so I wasn't able to finish them, so they are kind of unfinished. And by unfinished, I mean that part down there, but we'll look at that more in depth later in the video. Another thing, as you can imagine, this is a pretty huge diorama. It actually put all of my supplies to the max. I actually, like I said, ran out of supplies while doing this, and you can actually see that here. You might not be able to realize it at first, but if you know Hamad International Airport, you can kind of see what's wrong here. So number one, the really interesting thing about Hamad International is that every single gate is designed to fit wide-body aircraft. So there's no exclusively narrow-body gates at the terminal. There are, of course, some exclusively narrow-body stands at the remote gates, or remote stands I should say, which are elsewhere on the apron, but at the terminal itself, every single stand is wide-body compatible, which is pretty cool. And as such, each gate has two jetways. So every single gate across all 5 concourses has 2 jetways. And of course, I only have so many jetways, so I wasn't able to actually fully replicate that. So as you can see, I have singles here, here, and then I was able to get a double jetway here, and then everything else is a single actually moving. Everything else is double jetway moving down that way, except for the one all the way back there. But yeah, it's a huge airport, as you can imagine, and I wasn't able to fully replicate that. So. But then again, you kind of expected that from the disclaimer I gave at the beginning of the video. So yeah, anyway, on to the setup tour with the terminals and everything. This right here is the main like drop-off and check-in area. This is where you arrive to the airport to check in, go through security, all that stuff. That's here. The lounges for Qatar Airways, they are also in this sort of area. The duty-free area is here. And of course, the famous lamp bear is right around here, because this is, of course, the area where all the concourses meet up. So the famous lamp bear, all that good stuff is right here. There's no scenery like roads or anything. It's just a one-time update. I didn't bother putting any of that down here. So that's what that is. Hamad International is split up into 5 concourses currently. So right here is Concourse A. This is not the full Concourse A. There's actually like 2 more gates this way, 2 more this way, and then 2 more here. So 6 gates total, I think, that I'm missing because of space constraints. Concourse A. Concourse B over here, same thing. I am missing about 4 to 6 gates. That would be over here. And then there would be a bunch of remote stands down this way, and then some more in that area. And then, so yeah, there's a huge amount of remote gates actually down right here. And then the runway, I think 3-4 right, it'll be more towards that way. And then 3-4 left will be the other way, of course. This giant straightaway down the middle, this is Concourse C. Right there, that split off end towards the left is Concourse D, and then the one towards the right is Concourse E. And you can kind of tell back there, that's the unfinished portion. In real life, Hamad International Airport recently got a huge expansion. They added this really nice like forest kind of nature walk area. If you've seen the Jewel at Singapore Changi Airport, exactly the same thing as that. So they added that in that sort of area down there, and then 5 more gates down that way. If you can barely see them back there. So I wasn't able to fully show that because I ran out of supplies. So we'll just say that part is under construction, which is it's kind of believable. Why not? So yeah, that's what that is. So that is really it for the setup. We'll talk more about the flights and everything as we progress through the video, but without any further delay, let's get started with Concourse A with all the aircraft. So to kick off the airport update, first aircraft here is the Sri Lankan Airlines Airbus A330-200 in the One World livery. This aircraft just came in from Colombo as Flight 217, and we headed back out to Colombo in about 2 hours as Flight 218. Next up is the Air India Boeing 777-300ER. This aircraft will be headed off to Mumbai as Flight 982. This is kind of unrealistic because Air India does not fly the 777 to Doha regularly, or at all, to be honest. The most common aircraft you'll see here every day from Air India is the A320neo, and then they also fly the 737-800 under Air India Express. They did fly the 7878 from Mumbai on Flight 970, I believe, through December. But unfortunately that service has ended. It's reverted back to the A320neo on flights like 982 and 981, for example. So this is not supposed to be here, but it's the closest I had. It's actually the only Air India aircraft that I have in my entire collection. So I really wanted to represent Air India here, so hence this is all I could really do. Next up we have the Pakistan International Airlines Airbus A320 in the retro livery. This aircraft is currently getting some service ahead of its departure back to Peshawar as Flight 286. And a quick fun fact, during the World Cup, which was held in Qatar last month, a bunch of airlines like PIA, Etihad, Fly Dubai, Air Arabia, among others, they actually shifted operations temporarily to the old Doha airport because they actually kind of upgraded it and reopened the old Doha airport ahead of the World Cup to accommodate for the extra increase of people, fans and such coming to watch the World Cup games. So, and that's especially because Hamad International was getting a massive increase in people as well. So to kind of relieve the stress off of Hamad International, that's why they reopened the old Doha airport and shifted a bunch of airline operations across to that airport. So mainly it was all the non-Qatar Airways flights that got shifted to the old Doha airport. So PIA, like I said, Etihad, Air Arabia, and Fly Dubai. And I think some Air India flights as well got shifted over there. There's a bunch of airlines that actually got shifted. I can't name them all, but those 4 that I just listed were some of them that got temporarily shifted to the old Doha airport during the World Cup period here in Qatar. And just next to PIA here we have the Etihad Airways Airbus A321 getting some service ahead of its departure back to Abu Dhabi as Flight 394. Unfortunately, all of the 321s in Etihad's fleet, and I think all the 320s as well, they've all been repainted to the new livery, so this aircraft is kind of outdated, but it's the closest thing that I had because this is the only aircraft, or this one and the 320, that's what Etihad is flying to Doha these days, but closest I had, so we just got to make do with what we got. Alright, moving along with some more UAE traffic here, we got the Fly Dubai Boeing 737 MAX 8, just came in from Dubai as Flight 1, and it's going to go back out to Dubai in a few hours, or maybe not even a few hours, maybe like an hour or two, as flight number 2. And then next to that we have the second low-cost carrier from the UAE, Air Arabia A320, pushing back for its return flight to Sharjah as Flight 136. Alright, so that was Concourse A. Now we've moved across to Concourse B. I just wanted to quickly mention something. I kind of noticed both while preparing the routes for this update and also when I was connecting through Doha twice last year. It seems to me that all of the non-Qatar Airways flights, all the airlines that aren't Qatar Airways, they seem to be only consolidated across Concourses A and B, and then of course the remote gates as well. I've never seen, besides like American Airlines or Air Canada, I don't think any of these non-Qatar Airways airlines use Concourses C, D, or E. I think they only use Concourses A or B, and then of course the remote stands. So that's something I've noticed. If anybody could tell me otherwise, I would love to hear it. But first aircraft here at Concourse B is the Philippine Airlines Airbus A330-300. This aircraft will be operating Flight 685 back out to Manila. Next up here we have the Malaysia Airlines Airbus A330-300 operating flight 165 back to Kuala Lumpur. This is one of 2 daily flights that Malaysia Airlines have to Doha now, and the interesting thing about Malaysia Airlines is that they didn't fly to Doha previously. Only until last year they recently started flying to Doha, and the reason for this is, if you didn't hear about Qatar Airways and their A350 issues, they've grounded about 25 A350s because of some fuselage issues, paint issues that I'm not going to get into the full details of, but long story short, this huge A350 fuselage issues have caused a big aircraft shortage for Qatar Airways, and to compensate, they've brought some older planes back into service. They reactivated the 330s and the 380s, and they also leased a couple planes from airlines like Cathay Pacific and Virgin Australia and Oman Air. And not only the leasing of planes, but they've also, outsourced a bunch of routes to their partner airlines. So Malaysia Airlines is a One World Alliance member, just like Qatar Airways. So they are a partner airline of Qatar Airways. Qatar Airways used to have 3 daily flights to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, before the entire 350 issues came around. But because of all the issues, they had to kind of downsize quite a bit, not just to Kuala Lumpur, but a bunch of other routes, as I'll show you later on in the video. So as such, they outsourced 2 of those 3 daily flights to Malaysia Airlines, and that's why Malaysia Airlines is now serving Doha twice a day with their 330s, which is a big downgrade from the Q Suite, 777-300ERs and A350s you used to see flying to Kuala Lumpur, 2 to 3 times a day. But, Qatar Airways is just doing what they can to cope with the struggles that they've been facing lately. And next up is another One World Alliance partner. It's the British Airways Boeing 777-200ER, just about to depart for London Gatwick as Flight 2032. Now here's another example of a route that got outsourced to a Qatar Airways partner airline. Qatar Airways, I believe they've been flying to London Gatwick at least once a day. So this might not actually be the best example, but they did outsource a couple of their daily London flights to British Airways. So BA now operates, I believe, 1 flight a day to Heathrow, London Heathrow on the 787. And then they also have this once a day flight to Gatwick on the 777-200ER. So this, I'm not too sure how recent it is. I'm not too sure. I don't think BA's been operating this route for that long. As a matter of fact, I think they've only been operating it ever since the Qatar Airways aircraft issue crisis came into being. So that's another example of a route that got outsourced to a partner airline. BA, they're 2 times a day here to Doha, once to Gatwick and once to Heathrow. Moving on to the other side of Concourse B, we have yet another One World Alliance partner of Qatar Airways. It's the Royal Jordanian Airlines Boeing 787-8 operating Flight 651 back to Amman, Jordan. They actually don't fly the 787 to Doha. Ironically, I think they fly to Dubai many times per day, but to Doha they actually don't fly this at all. They fly their 319s and Embraer 195s to Doha from Amman. So this is the only Royal Jordanian plane that I had, so naturally I had to put it in here. So that's what we got. Next up is the Ethiopian Airlines Boeing 777-200LR. Ethiopian flies a variety of planes to Doha. They fly from the 737-800 to the 787 to the 777-200LR. This is what they flew to Doha, I think 2 or 3 days ago, or no, just yesterday from the time I'm filming this video. So this is Ethiopian Airlines Flight 432 back to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. And I believe they do use Concourse B, but I could be wrong there. So yeah, Ethiopian's got 1 flight a day to Addis Ababa, and then Qatar Airways has their own daily service to Addis Ababa. I don't think Ethiopian is a partner airline of Qatar Airways. They might be, but they are from Star Alliance. They're not from One World, so could be wrong there. But Ethiopian does maintain a once daily service to Doha, and Qatar Airways also has their own daily service to Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. Alright, next up, the first of various Qatar Airways planes in this video. This is the 787-9 pushing back with service out to Manchester, England, flight number 27, and it came in earlier from Chennai, India as flight 529. So like I said, Qatar Airways, they use all the concourses. This is their home turf, so they have naturally the right to use every single gate they can. I actually arrived when I flew in from Chicago back last year, January 2022, we arrived into Concourse A on that side, and my connecting flight to Karachi, we actually departed from the corner gate right here at Concourse B. So yeah, Qatar Airways uses all the gates they can. It just so happens that a bunch of the non-Qatar Airways airlines, I think they're mainly consolidated across B and A, and then of course the remote stands, as I mentioned earlier in the video. So 7879 service to Manchester. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the largest concourse at this airport, which is Concourse C. This is where all of the US and Canadian bound flights depart from this airport, and that's primarily because each of the gates at Concourse C, each gate is actually equipped with a secondary security checkpoint. So before you actually enter the physical gate area, you have to pass through a secondary screening. Your luggage and passport check, all that stuff gets checked again before you enter the gate area, and then before you furthermore board the aircraft. So each of the gates at Concourse C have that security secondary screening area. And then you also have other flights to Asian destinations and elsewhere in Europe, Africa, Australia as well. They all depart from this concourse. It's not just US and Canada, but all of the US and Canadian flights, they depart from this concourse. They can't depart from anywhere else of the airport because these are the only gates in the airport equipped with that secondary checkpoint, as I said. Alright, so the first aircraft here at Concourse C is this Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER in the One World livery. This is one of 4 777-300ERs in the fleet with this livery. It's making service out to Johannesburg, South Africa, with continuing service onwards to Durban, South Africa as Flight 1367, and it arrived earlier from Manila in the Philippines as Flight 929. So first thing you might notice if you're at all familiar with Hamad International Airport is that the catering company, I don't believe it's LSG Sky Chefs. I believe the catering is solely handled by QACC, or also QAS, Qatar Aviation. I think QAS is the name of it, Qatar Aviation Services. QAS is the main handler of catering at Hamad International. So LSG Sky Chefs doesn't really exist in Hamad International. I don't believe they do any catering there, but I don't have, these are the only catering trucks I really had, along with some other unmarked ones. So just ignore that. And then a bit of a funny story, the reason why I chose to put this particular plane at this particular gate is that when I was actually connecting through Doha on the way back to the States from Pakistan, I had just come in from Karachi. We were connecting through, of course. We were going through the security checkpoint that all arriving passengers into Doha have to go through. It's like somewhere in this area. There's so the checkpoint's around here somewhere. There's actually a little window, like some windows here in the hallway. You can actually see out across the apron. So the aircraft that was parked at this gate was actually one of the One World 333s. So I kind of have it set up exactly as I saw it. It had the air stairs in the back and the jetway was attached. I don't think it was this particular plane. This exact plane here is A7BAA. The one that I saw at this gate was A7BAB, which is the sister ship. So close enough. Thought it'd be cool to replicate some of the memories I had at Hamad International from last year. And next up, of course, we have the massive Qatar Airways Airbus A380, operating flight number 3 to London Heathrow and arrived earlier from Bangkok, Thailand as flight 837. So in real life, the A380 compatible gates at Hamad International, they are actually triple jetways. What you see here is actually a double jetway. I don't have those special triple A380 jetways. So in real life, there would actually be 2 jetways on the lower deck, and the third jetway would actually extend upwards to the upper deck. So like I said, I don't have that special jetway in my collection right now. So what I have here, I had to improvise. I have one jetway on the lower deck and the second jetway extending to the upper deck. This is actually the first time I've ever really shown this kind of scenario in any of my airport updates. So that's pretty special, as you can see here. So yeah, Qatar Airways, I believe they have, I think total they had 6 or 7 of the 380s at their peak. I don't know if all 6 of them are reactivated. I know at one point 3 of them had been reactivated and were in active service. But I'm not sure if all of them are back in service right now. But I did see a few of these when I was in Doha, and yeah, it was really, really cool to see. Alright, next moving on, we have the Airbus A350-1000 from Qatar Airways, and this aircraft is operating flight number 737 to San Francisco, and it came in earlier from Islamabad, Pakistan as flight 633. Next up, another departure. I believe this is also going to the US. Yeah, it is. Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER operating flight 755 to Atlanta, Georgia. Came in earlier from Tokyo, Narita, Japan as flight 807. Next up, we got another 777-300ER from Qatar Airways. This aircraft is operating flight 763 to Montreal, Canada, and came in earlier from Phuket, Thailand as flight 841. And last aircraft on this side of Concourse C, we have the Qatar Airways Airbus A350-900, and this aircraft is operating flight number 713 to Houston, Texas, and came in earlier from Hyderabad, India as Flight 501. Alright, starting off with the other side of Concourse C, we have this Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER in the Oneworld livery, which is ironically right across the street from the other Oneworld. This aircraft is operating flight number 725 to Chicago and came in earlier from Melbourne, Australia as Flight 905. So back-to-back 14-15 hour flights for that particular aircraft. Next up we have the beautiful Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER in the retro livery. This aircraft will be operating flight number 777 to Miami and came in earlier from Adelaide, Australia and Auckland, New Zealand as Flight 915. So Auckland and Adelaide, they combine onto one flight, just like you saw with Johannesburg and Durban, South Africa. So Auckland, New Zealand, the plane starts off in Auckland, stops over in Adelaide, Australia, picks up some more passengers, and then comes onwards to Doha as Flight 915. So there we go. This particular plane, the retro livery, quite frequently visits Miami. I've been surprised. I was looking at it on Flight Radar a few days ago. This plane visits Miami quite often, which is pretty cool. I wish it came to Chicago a little bit more because, you know, it'd be nice to see it. I actually have not seen it yet at all lately, so I'd love to see it sometime in Chicago. I actually flew this exact plane too from Chicago to Doha in 2013 before it was the retro livery, so that's just a pretty cool fact I wanted to share with you all. Next aircraft here is the American Airlines Boeing 777-200ER in the Oneworld livery. This aircraft is going to be operating flight 121 back to JFK. Now this flight actually, the American Airlines actually does not fly into Doha during this sort of rush period for all the US bound flights. They actually arrive in Doha at 9 p.m. and they depart back out to JFK at around 2 a.m. Like I said, this airport update does not have a set time frame, so you know, I just threw in whatever I could. Basically, all the airlines I had for Doha, I put in this update, and there's a lot of airlines I am missing. A lot of airlines I'm missing from this airport, unfortunately. But like I said, I threw in whatever I had, and that's what we got going right now. So initially, when they started this service, American Airlines, they were flying the 777-300ER. They've since down-gauged it to a 777-200ER. And yes, this is one of those routes that Qatar Airways outsourced one of their flights to a partner airline. So American, being a one-world carrier, they took over one of the 3 daily flights that there is between Doha and JFK. So Qatar Airways currently have 2 of those 3, and American is operating the 3rd one, obviously. It used to be 3 daily flights from Qatar Airways, but one of those flights, of course, got outsourced to American. And they've been doing pretty good on this flight, on this route from what I can tell. So that's obviously really good to see. Next up here we have the Qatar Airways Boeing 777-200LR, just came in from Cape Town, South Africa as Flight 1371, and in a few hours it's going to be operating Flight 705 to New York JFK. Of course, like I said with the American, this is one of 2 daily flights that Qatar currently operates to JFK. This one on the 777-200LR, Flight 705, and then I think the other one is a 350-1000 if I'm not wrong. So yeah, that flight departs I think 4 p.m., 3 to 4 p.m. So it departs much later than the rest of the U.S. Rush, the early morning U.S. bound traffic rush at 8 a.m. or so. But yeah, it gets into JFK really late too, like 9 or 10 p.m. So, but yeah, 777-200LR from Cape Town going off to JFK. And the last aircraft at Concourse C is the Qatar Airways Airbus A350-900 in the Oneworld livery, operating flight number 727 to Philadelphia, and came in earlier from Paris Charles de Gaulle as flight number 38. Alright, so once we've finished up Concourse C, now let's quickly do Concourse D. The first aircraft here is this Qatar Airways Boeing 777-300ER. Just came in from Male in the Maldives as flight 673. It's now going to be operating flight 674 back out to Male. So you're probably wondering what's up with this airplane, why is it all white? Well, you might remember earlier in the video I talked about how because of the 350 fuselage crisis and the aircraft shortage, Qatar Airways, they were forced to lease a bunch of airplanes from partner airlines, as well as, you know, bring previously grounded airplanes back into service like the 330 and the 380. So they leased 5 777-300ERs from Cathay Pacific. They got the first leased 777 came into the fleet, I believe in late 2021 or early 2022. So they came from Cathay Pacific. They still have the Cathay Pacific seats in them, the first class, business class, economy class. The Cathay Pacific hard product, the seats and everything, they are still in these planes. But Qatar Airways, they've of course, added their branding. They've installed their software onto the in-flight entertainment screens. But the hard product, the seats themselves, are all from Cathay Pacific still in these airplanes. So yeah, they've repainted them they removed the Cathay Pacific branding, obviously, and then they just put the Qatar Airways temporary branding on them, I guess. So yeah, 5 of them are from Cathay Pacific, and then they recently just got one added to the fleet from Virgin Australia. It has the same exact livery, but it just doesn't have those extra SATCOM boxes on the top you see there, and has of course a different configuration. So fun fact about those 5 Cathay 777s, ex-Cathay 777s they got in the fleet, like this one, this is A7BOA, this was the first ex-Cathay 777, or leased Cathay 777 I should say. These 5 777s, they only fly to 4 cities. They don't fly anywhere else. You might have noticed it came from Male. It's going to go back out to Male. So the Maldives is a very premium, I shouldn't say premium, but it's a very touristy destination. So I don't exactly know why I guess it's because these planes have a special first class, like the Cathay Pacific first class. Qatar Airways didn't remove that product, so it's still in here. But then I have no idea why they only fly these ex-Cathay 777s to 4 cities. So the first city is Male, they fly them there. They also fly them to Colombo in Sri Lanka. They fly them to Istanbul in Turkey, and they also fly them to Zurich in Switzerland. So those are the only 4 cities that these 5 leased Cathay 777s fly to. The recent one they just got, A7BOF from Virgin Australia. That one flies to a bit more cities like Manchester. It's been flying to, I believe it also flies to some cities in the Middle East and elsewhere in Europe. And then they recently also brought back another 777-200LR. It was previously not grounded, but they had leased it. And Qatar Airways, they had this plane before. They returned it to the lessor, but then they brought it back. They leased it again because the crisis was getting so bad. But the ironic thing is that plane actually wore the full Qatar Airways livery when it operated for them. But when Qatar Airways got that particular plane back, A7BBF, they didn't repaint it. They just put the white livery on it, and it's still flying like that. It's in a white livery, but that plane flies everywhere. It flies to New York, Dallas, Middle Eastern cities, European cities, everywhere. So yeah, quite interesting. So like I said, the 5 Cathay Pacific leased 777s, A7BOA through A7BOE, I think it is, or maybe it's A7BOD, maybe it's just 4 of them, I can't remember. But they only fly to 4 cities, and there's one more A7BOF which flies to more cities, a broader range of cities, and then the 6th or 7th white plane, or white 777 in the fleet, 777-200LR, that flies to a bit more cities. But basically the entire network, that 777LR goes everywhere. And then other planes they leased because of the crisis, they leased some planes from Oman Air, like a couple A330-300s and 200s, and I think that might be it. So that's a brief rundown of the planes that they leased because of the 350 troubles. And then the next aircraft and the last aircraft at Concourse D is this Qatar Airways Airbus A350-900. I know I've been saying a lot about the 350 fuselage issues and a bunch of them being grounded. So yeah, there's like 20 or 25 A350 900s and 1000s total that are grounded in Doha, but they still have a pretty good amount of 900s and 1000s still active. So I just want to make that very clear. I should have mentioned that earlier. I apologize. But this plane is going to be making service out to Singapore as Flight 944, came in from Madrid earlier as Flight 152. Alright, so here we are at Concourse E to conclude this airport update. Here's the last Qatar Airways plane of the video. It's the Airbus A330-300, making service out to Basra, Iraq as Flight 448, and came in earlier from Cochin, India as Flight 517. So the A330-300s and 200s, they were originally supposed to be retired, but like I said, because of all the issues, they had to reactivate pretty much the entire fleet. So all the 330, 200s, and 300s that they could get back in service, they did. So those are still flying now for Qatar Airways. These are the oldest planes, I believe, in the fleet right now. I think they are. The 321 might be older They have, I think, one or two 321s still flying around, but I think the 330-300s and the 200s, they're still, I think, the oldest planes that they currently have in the fleet. Okay, and then last two planes of the update. Here's a perfect example of what I was talking about with earlier in the video when I said that a lot of the non-Qatar Airways flights either use Concourse A, B, or they get sent to the remote gates. And mainly if they're narrow-body planes, a lot of the times they do get sent to a remote stand. So the first aircraft you see in the foreground, Oman Air Boeing 737-800, they actually fly the MAX 8 to Doha mostly. I don't think they fly the 800 currently to Doha. It's mostly the MAX 8. But this aircraft just came in from Muscat, Oman as Flight 669, and I believe it will be Flight 670 back to Muscat in about an hour or two. And this is a white A321, but just imagine it's operating for Indigo because I don't have an Indigo plane right now. I was planning to get one to do this airport, but I just never ended up buying one. But whatever, Indigo A321 operating Flight 1772 to Mumbai. Fun fact, when I was in Doha, I would literally only see Indigo planes at the remote stands, and I thought I saw Air Canada as well, but Air Canada was just sitting there in between flights. Air Canada departs from the terminal. They just send it to the remote gate to make space at the terminal. Indigo, though, they never use the terminal. Indigo, all their flights, from what I can tell, depart from the remote stands, unfortunately. So, but Indigo has a big number of flights. They fly to not just Mumbai, I think they fly to Delhi as well. They fly to Kannur, they fly to Kochi, I think they fly to, I think they might fly to Chennai as well. I might be wrong there. But Indigo is a big network from Doha. Same with Air India Express, that's their main competition from here. But yeah, just imagine this is operating for Indigo, headed off to Mumbai. Alright, so that's all the aircraft that we have in this Doha airport update. Just really quickly wanted to talk about how Hamad International Airport kind of operates with regards to like the arrivals and departures. So Qatar Airways, they mainly specialize in connecting east to west. And I mean, they lately have been trying to develop Doha as more of a destination than a stopover city. But a lot of their business model, a lot of the Middle Eastern airlines, they kind of follow this same, connecting traffic kind of business model where they connect people going from east to west or west to east. They connect them through their cities, their hub cities, because the Middle East, Doha, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc., they're like the perfect location. They're in the smack middle of the entire world, so they can really connect. They can bring the entire world together, basically. So you have, like this plane came in from Australia, headed off to the US. That's what they specialize in. They specialize in bringing people from one end to the world, connect them through Doha, give them a brief stopover, and then send them off to the other side of the world, if you get what I mean. So to fit this business model, to fit the itineraries of everybody, Doha Airport, I believe they operate in like 3 main departure and arrival banks. So for arrivals, you'll see a lot of them come in between 10 p.m. and 12 a.m. That's the late evening arrival bank. Another arrival bank, it gets really busy with arrivals between 4 a.m. through 9 a.m. And then you see another very busy arrival block between 10 a.m. Well, 10 a.m. through 7 p.m. most of the day. It's kind of steady, arrivals and departures. But the busiest times of day for the arrivals, 10 p.m., 12 a.m., and 4 a.m. through 9 a.m. Similarly with the departures, just pan over to a different part so you can not get bored. Departures, you'll see 12 a.m. through 3 a.m. is a big departure bank. A little. It's somewhat busy. 7 a.m. through 10 a.m. is the major departure bank for like U.S., Canada, Europe, everywhere. That's a big departure rush between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. It's like almost all U.S. and Canada departing in that time. And then you also have 5 p.m. through 9 p.m. That's a pretty busy departure bank as well, mainly to Southeast Asia, South Asia, those kind of places. 5 p.m., 9 p.m. is that evening rush period. So hopefully that makes sense. If you want to check out my trip reports on Qatar Airways I made last year, those were some of the best videos I've ever made, and they are also among the most popular videos on my channel. Everybody who I've talked to about those videos absolutely loved them, so thank you all so much for the support on those videos. I really appreciate them, and I really hope I can make them again soon, hopefully this year. But that is it for Doha. Again, I apologize if this was not the best replica. Every single gate at this airport is a double gate, but they're also glass jetways like this. I only have so many of these, I don't have enough to go around. So I apologize for that, but I really hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully it wasn't too long for you. And again, if you enjoyed, leave a like. If you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new to the channel. And until next time, thank you everybody. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.